I remember the last time, sometimes you start to clap after every poem, and that becomes like a drag, but I felt the opposite now. I wanted to clap, and I thought, once you start, you can't stop. But I really enjoyed listening to your poetry. And I was wondering, because a lot of them seem to be structured very elegantly and very not tight and loose at the same time, but there is a certain structure, shape to it. Is that something you start off with, or is it something that grows gradually?
I think it can depend. You know, some poems come out with a structure, like they're very obviously born in kind of couplets or something like that. I would be very aware of structure up to a point. Like, I'm not a formalist person, you know. I can read a poem and think it's really dull, and then somebody will say, but Grace, it's a sonnet. And I'm still thinking, well, it's actually really dull, whether it's a sonnet or not. So form doesn't impress me for the sake of itself. But I'm very cautious about where my lines go and how the poem looks on the page. And there's certainly the form, whether it's the form of the stanzas, they need to carry exactly what is being said. So I don't try to let things sprawl around all over the place. There is a real care around form, but I don't want it to dominate what I'm doing.
I wasn't talking about true form in that sense, but more like internals. No, but I mean, I don't even listen to that, but no, I was talking about with the pomegranates, for example, that it's like a kind of a content structure.
Yeah.
Like it's the theme is carried through in some ways.
Yeah.
Would you be aware of that, or is it just flow out? I mean, do you start to write and just flow?
I think it would flow out. Something would flow out, and then, I mean, I always talk about that when I'm teaching, that we write unconsciously. We do tend to flow something out, and then the real task of writing is that conscious moment where you then go back and you look and you see, well, what have I done and how have I done it? And so that's the point where you could consciously try to shape the form a little bit more clearly even. But I suppose with that pomegranate poem, yeah, it definitely kind of was born in that way.
Thank you very much. Does mentoring, because you mentor young people or anyone, and does mentoring give you inspiration as well? I mean, what does it consist of, mentoring?
Well, when I'm mentoring, I'm working one-to-one with people, so I get them to send me their work in advance, and I'll read it and consider it and think about it, and then we'll meet and we'll talk for maybe an hour and a half, and I'm basically just trying to help them to improve the work, and so I'm pointing out maybe mistakes or errors, and that could be anything at all. And it totally depends on the person and where they're at, the stage they're at, as to how much I can point out to them and how much they're open to. Does it help me? Yeah, it does a lot, because I mean, I think I've learned a lot in my life from people's mistakes. Very often people make exactly the same mistakes. Everyone makes the same mistakes. And so I can very quickly identify them and also soothe people and then say, look, you're using one verb tense up here, and down here you've come into the future tense, and back there you're in the past. And I can say everyone does it, and so it's a great way for writers to work. I mean, I was writer in residence in Kilkenny, and at the end of the process, the arts office said to me, well, what do you think we should do to go forward? And I brought in mentoring. I said, writers need one-to-one attention. I mean, workshops are great for what they can do, but actually you need one-to-one. You need one person telling you, helping you, facilitating you to become the writer that you are. So that's why I'm a passionate advocate of mentoring. Yeah, and it's very inspirational work when you can do that. You can just help someone along to the next place.
Would you say that what good poetry, in as far as you can define that, comes from a particular place in somebody's psyche, so to speak? I mean, does it have to come intuitively, or is it also possible to write very intellectually, or really from the thinking mind? Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, only personal ideas, and I mean, I think that it's one man's meat is another man's poison, isn't it? So for me, people's honesty, I absolutely require people's honesty in poetry. I look in poetry to know how to live. I find life very confusing, bewildering, bemusing, and I think poetry is one of the places that can really help us to know how to live. and the struggles that other people are going through and all of that kind of thing. So for me, that's what I'm always looking for, is I want to read a collection of poems and learn something about how that person lives. Now, a lot of poetry is very intellectual and quite sort of, I don't know, almost austere. People don't want to say indiscreet things on stages about their ex-boyfriends. Impulses I can totally understand. But I think for me, if that is lacking, if the emotional world is not in the poem, then I don't get anything from it. But of course, that's me, another person with a much more, intellectual mind. Jung divided the psyche into 4 realms, and I think there was kind of thinking, emotion, sensation, and something else which I've forgotten, inspiration. But so if you've got a thinking person will respond to a thinking person's poem. An emotional person, so I'm going to respond to an emotional poem. So I guess that might be helpful in sort of when you're reading poems and you kind of go, oh, there's nothing in this for me. It may be written by someone of a different personality type. Does that help?
Totally. One last question. Your first collection was God Was Called Away to Greater Things? That's a really intriguing question, intriguing title. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, it came from a very short poem where I described my heart as a rusted camp bed. I don't know if you remember those old-fashioned camp beds that used to kind of stack up in the bedroom and then fold them out like that. And I felt that my heart had kind of been prized open and that God had lain down there. But in the morning, he had been called away to greater things. And I think that's the thing that happens. We're very often on our own in life without a spiritual presence. God is off sorting out the wars and the politics and the great things, and we're on our own. And in that place of being on our own without the big spiritual presence, we also have to find the spiritual presence. And I think that's what a lot of my work is about finding the spiritual presence within a state of chaos.
Thank you very much. Thank you.